All right, let's go.
Number 10, you have already seen it happen. The teleportation nobody calls teleportation. Before we get to wormholes and exotic matter and consciousness transfer, here is the part that stops most people cold. Teleportation is already real. It has already been demonstrated in laboratories, repeatedly, with peer-reviewed results published in Nature and Science. Nobody calls it teleportation because what gets teleported is not matter, it is information, quantum information, the exact quantum state of a particle, its spin, polarization, momentum, transmitted from one location to another and recreated perfectly at the destination. The original particle is not moved, it is destroyed. A new particle at the destination is forced into the identical quantum state. The information that made the original particle what it was now defines the new one. By the strictest definition of the word, the identity of the particle has been teleported. The original is gone. The destination particle is now it. In 2022, a team at Caltech demonstrated quantum teleportation across 44 kilometers of fiber optic cable in New York City. Not a laboratory tabletop, real infrastructure, real distance. The fidelity of the quantum teleported states was above 90%. China's Michius satellite demonstrated quantum teleportation between ground stations 1,200 kilometers apart in 2017. This is happening right now, today. The gap between teleporting a quantum state and teleporting a human being is enormous, but the principle that makes the first possible is the same principle the second would require. We already crossed the first barrier. We just haven't admitted it yet. Number 9. Quantum entanglement, the instantaneous connection that spans any distance. Quantum entanglement is the phenomenon Einstein called spooky action at a distance. He used that phrase because it disturbed him. He was right to be disturbed. When two particles become entangled, their quantum states are correlated. Measuring one instantly determines the state of the other, regardless of the distance between them. Not after a light speed delay, instantly. The correlation is instantaneous across any distance. This sounds like it should allow faster than light communication. It does not. The reason is subtle and important. When you measure an entangled particle, the result is random. You cannot control what outcome you get. Your partner at the other end also gets a random result. The randomness is correlated. If you both measure along the same axis, you always get opposite results, but neither of you can use that to send a message, because neither of you controls what result you get. Here is where teleportation enters. Using entanglement as a quantum channel, combined with a classical communication channel, you can transmit the complete quantum state of a particle from one location to another without the particle physically traveling. The classical channel carries additional information needed to complete the reconstruction. The entanglement channel carries the quantum state itself. The entanglement does not teleport the particle, it teleports the information about the particle. And in quantum mechanics, information and identity are the same thing. Quantum entanglement networks are currently being built across Europe, China, and the United States. The goal is a quantum internet, a communication network using entanglement as its fundamental resource. Teleportation of quantum states is a core functionality of that network. We are building the infrastructure for teleportation. We just started with information rather than matter.
Number 8. The Heisenberg Problem and how quantum teleportation solves it. The obstacle that should have made teleportation impossible. Before quantum teleportation was developed, there was a reason physicists thought teleporting a person was fundamentally impossible, not just practically impossible, impossible in principle. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle states that you cannot simultaneously know the exact position and momentum of any particle. The more precisely you measure one, the less precisely you can know the other. This is not a limitation of measurement technology. It is a fundamental feature of reality. To teleport a human being using a scan and rebuild approach, you would need to know the exact quantum state of every atom in the body. Every proton, every neutron, every electron, their positions, momenta, spins, orientations, all of it, simultaneously. Heisenberg says you cannot have that information.
Measuring it disturbs the system. The scan destroys what it is trying to read. For over half a century, this seemed to close the door permanently. Then, in 1993, physicist Charles Bennett and colleagues discovered quantum teleportation, the protocol that allows you to transmit the complete quantum state of a particle without measuring it directly. The trick uses entanglement to sidestep the measurement problem. You never need to know the quantum state, you just need to transmit it. The entanglement channel carries the state without the information passing through any measurement that would collapse it. Heisenberg's principle does not prevent quantum teleportation. It defines exactly how quantum teleportation must work to be possible. The door that seemed permanently closed turned out to have a hidden mechanism. You just had to find it. Number 7. Wormhole Teleportation, the shortcut through the universe. A traversable wormhole, an Einstein-Rosen bridge that something can actually pass through, would be the most dramatic form of teleportation physics permits. Step into one mouth, emerge instantly from the other. The distance between the two mouths is irrelevant. You have not traveled through the space between them. You have bypassed it entirely. This is not faster-than-light travel in the conventional sense. Special relativity speed limit applies to objects moving through space. A wormhole does not move you through space. It connects 2 points in space directly, eliminating the space between them from the perspective of the traveler. The requirements are the same discussed in the time travel context. Exotic matter with negative energy density to keep the wormhole throat stable and open. The Casimir effect demonstrates that negative energy density exists at quantum scales. The amount required to stabilize a human traversable wormhole is vastly beyond anything demonstrated or currently achievable. But here is the development that changes the picture significantly. In 2013, physicists Juan Maldacena and Leonard Susskind proposed the ER equals EPR conjecture. ER refers to Einstein-Rosen bridges, wormholes. EPR refers to Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen, quantum entanglement. The conjecture proposes that these are the same phenomenon at different scales. Two entangled particles may be connected by a microscopic wormhole. The quantum teleportation we described in the previous sections, the teleportation that is already working in laboratories today, is teleportation through a microscopic wormhole. If ER equals EPR is correct, and it is taken seriously by a significant portion of theoretical physicists, then we aren't just theorizing about wormhole teleportation. We may already be doing it at the quantum scale every time we run a quantum teleportation experiment. The gap between quantum scale and human scale is enormous, but the mechanism may already be real. Number 6. The Alcubierre warp metric, the teleportation that cheats the speed of light. In 1994, physicist Miguel Alcubierre found a solution to Einstein's field equations that allows a spacecraft to travel between 2 points faster than light without violating special relativity. The trick is elegant. The spacecraft does not move through space. Space moves around it. The metric, the mathematical description of space-time, contracts space in front of the vessel and expands behind it. The vessel sits in a flat bubble of normal space-time, while the bubble itself surfs through space at any velocity, including faster than light. From inside the bubble, nothing unusual is happening. No acceleration, no time dilation, no speed limit violation from the passenger's perspective. From outside the bubble, the vessel appears to travel faster than light. Effectively, this is teleportation. Set the warp bubble parameters correctly and you can traverse the distance from Earth to Alpha Centauri in weeks rather than 4.24 years at light speed. The problems are significant. The exotic matter requirement for the Alcubierre warp metric is even more severe than for wormholes. Early calculations suggested it would require more exotic matter than the mass energy of Jupiter with a negative sign. Subsequent refinements have reduced this requirement substantially, but it remains far beyond anything currently producible. The second problem is control. How do you steer a warp bubble from inside when the front of the bubble is moving faster than any signal from inside the bubble can reach it? The causal structure of the warp metric makes navigation from inside the bubble physically impossible with known physics. The third problem is Hawking radiation accumulating at the front of the bubble, potentially building to energies that would destroy the destination. These are hard problems. None of them are obviously insurmountable given sufficient technological advancement. The equations exist, the geometry works, the engineering does not yet. Number 5. Destructive teleportation. The copy that thinks it is you. This is the one that has kept philosophers awake for decades. Scan every atom of a person at location A. Record the complete quantum state of every particle in the body, using quantum teleportation protocols to sidestep the Heisenberg problem. Transmit that information to location B. Reconstruct the person atom by atom at location B using locally available matter. Destroy the original at location A. No known law of physics is violated by this process. The information can be transmitted. The reconstruction can be performed in principle. The physics is not the obstacle. The obstacle is the question nobody can answer. Is the person who stepped out at location B the same person who stepped in at location A? The reconstructed person has every memory, every personality, every physical characteristic of the original. From their own perspective, nothing happened. They stepped in, they stepped out. They are the same person. But the original was destroyed. The person at location B is a perfect copy assembled from different atoms with the information of the original. Every philosophical account of personal identity struggles with this. If you believe personal identity is about continuity of consciousness, the reconstructed person might not be you because consciousness was interrupted. If you believe personal identity is about information patterns, the reconstructed person is definitely you because every pattern is preserved. If you believe personal identity requires the same physical substrate, the reconstructed person is definitely not you because the atoms are different. There is no consensus. There may never be one. What is certain is that the person who stepped in at location A is dead. Whether the person at location B knows that is a different question entirely. Number 4. Consciousness teleportation. The version where only your mind goes. A variant of destructive teleportation sidesteps the physical substrate problem by targeting only the information. If consciousness is purely a product of information processing, if the specific pattern of neural connections and states is what makes you who you are, then you do not need to move atoms. You need to move the pattern. Scan the brain, map every neural connection, every synaptic weight, every electrochemical state. Transmit that information, instantiate it in a different substrate at the destination. The substrate could be biological, a cloned brain waiting to receive the pattern. It could be computational, a sufficiently powerful processor running the pattern as software. The resulting entity has every memory, every personality, every subjective experience of continuity with the original. This is sometimes called mind uploading, and it is taken seriously enough to have its own research field. The technical barriers are extraordinary. The human brain contains roughly 86 billion neurons, with approximately 100 trillion synaptic connections. Mapping that at the resolution required for faithful reconstruction is orders of magnitude beyond current neuroscience and computing. But the principle faces no known physical obstacle. The philosophical problem is the same as destructive teleportation, but sharper. If your mind is running on a processor at the destination, are you there? If your biological original is destroyed, did you teleport or did you die and a copy of you wake up somewhere else believing it is you? Derek Parfit, one of the 20th century's most important philosophers of personal identity, spent decades on this question. His conclusion was that the question itself may be malformed, that personal identity is not a deep metaphysical fact, but a conventional way of organizing experience, that what matters is not identity, but psychological continuity. Whether that answer satisfies you likely depends on whether you are about to step into the scanner. Number 3. Holographic teleportation.
rewriting the information that projects you into existence. This is the most radical entry on this list, and it requires accepting one of the most extraordinary proposals in modern theoretical physics. The holographic principle, emerging from work on black hole thermodynamics and string theory, suggests that all the information describing a three-dimensional volume of space is encoded on its two-dimensional boundary. Reality as we experience it in 3 dimensions may be a projection from a 2-dimensional informational surface. If this is correct, and the holographic principle is not fringe science, it is a serious theoretical framework taken seriously by physicists, including Stephen Hawking and Juan Maldacena, then what we call teleportation takes on a completely different meaning. Moving a person from point A to point B in the 3-dimensional projection is equivalent to rewriting the 2-dimensional information on the boundary that describes where that person is. Change the information, change the location in the projection. You are not moving through space. Space itself is updating. The holographic principle has strong theoretical support from the ADS-CFT correspondence, a precise mathematical duality between a gravitational theory in a higher dimensional space and a quantum field theory on its lower dimensional boundary. This is not speculation, it is a mathematically rigorous framework. What it implies for teleportation, if the universe is fundamentally holographic, is that the concept of location is more malleable than physics currently treats it. Location is not a fundamental property of matter, it is a feature of the information that projects matter into appearance. A civilization with sufficient understanding of the holographic structure of reality would not need to move matter through space at all.
Number 2. Extra dimension shortcuts. The path through a space we cannot see. String theory and M theory, the leading candidates for a theory of everything, propose that reality has more than 3 spatial dimensions. The extra dimensions are compactified, curled up at scales too small to detect with current instruments, but they are there, and they connect points in our 3-dimensional space in ways that could allow shortcuts. Imagine a sheet of paper. 2 points on the surface are separated by a distance you must traverse along the surface. But the paper can be folded, bringing the 2 points close together in the 3rd dimension. A path through the 3rd dimension connects them far more efficiently than any path along the surface. Extra dimensions work the same way for our 3-dimensional experience. 2 points that are separated by light years in our 3-dimensional experience might be nanometers apart in a higher dimensional sense. A particle or object that could interact with the extra dimensions could take the shortcut. There is no experimental confirmation of extra dimensions. The Large Hadron Collider has searched for signatures of extra dimensions, particles appearing to disappear into them, or Kaluza-Klein tower excitations, and found nothing. But the theoretical structure is self-consistent and makes predictions. Absence of evidence at current energy scales does not rule out extra dimensions at scales we cannot yet probe. If extra dimensions exist, and if matter can interact with them, teleportation is not a technology, it is a navigation problem.
Number 1. The universe as information. The version where teleportation is already the default. Here is the deepest version of teleportation, the one that reframes every other entry on this list. Physics increasingly suggests that information is not a description of reality, it is reality. John Wheeler, one of the physicists who developed much of the theoretical framework for black holes, spent his later career developing the idea he called it from bit, the proposal that every physical thing, every particle, every field, every interaction derives its existence from information, from answers to yes or no questions, from bits. If matter is information, if what makes an electron is not some irreducible physical stuff, but rather the information that specifies its quantum state, then the distinction between teleporting matter and teleporting information dissolves. You were never made of stuff. You were made of information that projects the appearance of stuff. Teleporting you is not moving matter from one place to another.
It is transmitting the information that specifies you and instantiating it at the destination. The matter at the destination is arbitrary. Any matter will do. The information is everything. This framework makes quantum teleportation, which already works in laboratories, not a pale imitation of real teleportation, but the real thing, the most fundamental version of it. Every quantum teleportation experiment is teleporting a piece of physical reality, not a description of it, but the thing itself, because in this framework, the description and the thing are identical. The reason we cannot yet teleport humans this way is not that the physics is wrong, it is that we cannot yet process and transmit 7 times 10 to the power of 27 bits of quantum information simultaneously. That is the number of atoms in a human body, each one with its complete quantum state. Engineering, not physics. The physics says you are information. The physics says information can be teleported. The physics says teleportation is real. The only question is scale. 10 ways teleportation could theoretically work. One of them is already happening in laboratories. One of them is being built into global communication networks. One of them may already be the mechanism underlying quantum entanglement itself. And at least one version ends with you arriving at the destination and wondering whether what arrived is really you. Teleportation is not science fiction anymore. It is science with an engineering problem, and engineering problems get solved. Thank you guys so much for these positive comments. Keep supporting, and don't forget to subscribe Cosmic Hives. See you in the next one.